The truth about planet Earth, human beings, souls, God, gods, everything that we have been told about our own history, I have found out has been 100% incorrect or incomplete at best. The truth of what humans are, the history of Earth, how souls got here, the creation of Earth, the connection between our souls and the universe and God and other civilizations is so mind-bendingly bizarre that there is no possible way that the average human being can make it up or guess it. And I know that because 2.5 years ago, I made contact with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings who I have been communicating with on almost a daily basis for the past 2.5 years. By the way, I'm nothing unusual. You can do the same thing. I did a thing called human initiated contact with extraterrestrials, also called CE5. Go Google it. I did it. And this is the result. And so in this video, I am going to be sharing with you the forbidden history of Earth. This is just part one. We've got a lot of things we're going to get to. So strap yourself in and take some notes and put in the comments if something doesn't make sense to you or if you need me to elaborate, because the information here is so intensely dense that if I skim over something that doesn't make sense to you, put it in the comments and ask me, and I'll be more than happy to share with you. By the way, all of the links here, these are the things that keep the channel going and also give you power. I teach you how to do the things that I do. More on that later. Back to the list. This is part one. Starts with the truth of God and the origin of souls, in case you didn't want to go super deep. Sorry about that. Here's number two, the forbidden history of Earth, part two, and we start talking about Atlanteans and Lemurians. I didn't believe in any of that. I still have a hard time believing it. The only reason I believe it is because higher dimensional ETs came to me and said, hey, guess what? You used to live in Atlantis, and here are the things that you did. And I said, I don't believe in Atlantis. And they said, well, too bad. I'm going to show you what happened. Take me back in time, show me all kinds of crazy stuff. And then we have list number three. We start talking about councils and the Great Flood. So what's happened over the past 13,000 years, how we got to have the corrupt elites that are ruling the world now, how they got there, how they learned how to control minds and control in the entire world, which they almost accomplished. But they're failing right now, and everything is crashing down on them. And that has to do with other things that I was taught, which has to do with the shifts in the ages or the yugas. And so I will be taking you through that. Now, how many videos is it going to take for me to go through all four of these things? Because the fourth list is the future of Earth that is happening and that is going to happen, or maybe not, depending on how you choose to hear this information and act on it. So I don't know how many videos it's going to take, but we're going to start with the first one, which is the Forbidden History of Earth, Part 1. Let's start with the truth of God and the origin of souls. And then we'll go to Galactic Guardians, discuss evolution. Galactic Guardians create Earth. Lemurian Guardians of Earth incarnate. Each ET race contributes to life forms on Earth. The Andromedans design humans. The Pleiadians become advisors to humans. The Lyrans, the Mantises, the Nagas, and other ETs also design life on Earth. How souls are chosen to be incarnated. All kinds of crazy stuff. Let's get to number one, the big one. The truth of God and the origin of souls. Somebody asked me that. Said, how did we get here? How were humans created? Excellent question. The truth was so incredibly bizarre and so different and so amazing and so entertaining. Listen, if I had made this up, I would be the best writer in the world. I didn't make this up. This was shown to me. So The origin of God and the truth of God and the origin of souls. All right, so this is important. If you don't understand this basic assumption, then you end up falling into all kinds of, well, if you don't understand this basic assumption, you can be manipulated and lied to very easily. You can, that's what's happened. That's what religion did, because people forgot. We knew 13,000 years ago, we knew, but we've forgotten. We'll get into that in maybe a later video. But the truth of God. So God, I'll tell you what God is not. First off, I'm going to tell you something very blasphemous, which is going to be hard for a lot of people to hear. And that is, you were never created. There is no being that created you. You have always existed, and you always will. So that right there kind of shatters the idea of there's a God out there who created people. That never happened. So how did we get here? Obviously, we got here somehow. So what is the truth about God? Well, there is bear in mind the word God is a word that came from an old Germanic word for the king of the gods, Odin, Gwod. So that's where we get the word God from, because when Christianity came to the Germanic-speaking people, they didn't have a word for Jehovah or the one, so they used the closest they had, which was Odin, Gwod, and that became God. And then that changed our understanding of God changed. By the way, that's why Europeans have God, a bearded guy on a throne pointing at you, because that comes from old understandings of Odin, who's sitting on the throne, and he's old and aged, and he's got, he's missing an eye, but he's got a crown on, and he's looking at earth. That's the king of the gods. He's not the creator God. So who is God? Well, he's not this all-powerful God who's all by himself and then decides to create humans out of nothing. It's not who he is. There is a source. If you want to call, you can call it God if you want. I don't care. There is a source being. There is a source being, and that source is the source of all consciousness. So you with me now? That makes sense. That sounds a lot like the God that we learned about in church or temple or in mosque. Sounds like that. But when we go a little bit deeper and a little bit closer, we find something very different. Now, this isn't a new concept. Some people have come to this awareness. It was one thing to hear it. It's another thing to experience it and see it. And so when you go deep into this light, so the source is pure light. So if you want to say God is light, you'd be correct. Pure light. That is God. But when you go deep, deep, deep into that light, of course, you end up finding emptiness and darkness. But that's not God either. What you find when you get to the heart of this light, because that's what is seen most as this bright, unbelievably bright light. When you go to the heart of it, what you will find is that you will see every other soul in the entire multiverse. Every person that is alive now, that has been alive, that will be alive, all of the gods, all of the spirits, all of the ETs, all of the animals, all of the plants, the fish, everything. When you look, you see all of those consciousnesses in there. And so you are not created by God. You are God that goes, hey, you know what? I want to go exploring. So I'm going to create some worlds that I can walk around and swim in or fly in or play in. That's what God did. And so God didn't create anything. He just gave himself little costumes, or herself little costumes, because God is neither male or female, or the source is neither male or female. And so I've said this many times, but people say that you are a ray of God, or you are a shaft of God, or you are a reflection of God, and none of those are true. You are the full, complete, holographic projection of the entirety of the source of consciousness. Every human. You're not a piece of it. And it's not like a piece here plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this equals infinity. No, every single person. That means you're looking at me, you're seeing a 62-year-old, a white male from Southern California who, wanted to be an actor and went to college and learned that. That's what you're seeing here. And that's how I identify. That's how I interact with reality. But if you go into my heart and you keep going and going and going and going, you're going to end up seeing the source. And then you come back and you'll realize this is a projection of the entirety of the source. And that will be true with you and with everybody else. So here's something, try this. See if you can do this. Stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself in the eyes and ask yourself to see the true essence of yourself. Maybe nothing will happen, but it's a great exercise. It's a great meditation too. Go into your heart, see the light, big, beautiful, bright, rainbow-colored light of all different colors, and just follow it and keep following it and following it and following it. And when you get to the end, you're going to find the source. And that source will be you. So that is the truth of God and the origin of souls. I already explained it to you. Every soul is a holographic projection. So this is important to understand, because the narrative that you've been created by some being, as some people take comfort in that, but the truth is that belief actually means that you're worthless. Because that being, if they created you, they can go, I don't like that, I'm going to erase it and throw it away. That's what hell is. God goes, I screwed up, that being's sinful, and I'm going to erase it. Worse than that, I'm going to throw it in hell and let it just be tortured forever. All right, what should I do next? It means that you don't mean anything. The cognitive dissonance, it's a psyop. Religion is a cognitive dissonance psyop. It's a psychological operation that's been, the monotheist religions. That God loves you, God created you, but you're separate from God, you're sinful, and you deserve to be put in hell forever. That creates cognitive dissonance, which simultaneously makes you feel worthless and at the same time makes you feel so desperate for love that you're willing to do or believe whatever you're told. So you can throw that out. That's why you're not created. You created yourself. You said, I'm going to go be that. Boom. This is you. And all souls in the multiverse have the same basic needs, desires, and wants. This is why, again, another psychological operation, a lie that you've been told, is that extraterrestrials are these beings that don't have emotions, don't understand you, they need to collect you and examine you, and, humans this, and, we live by logic. No, they have the same emotions and needs as you do. They're no different, they're just wearing a different skin suit. That's it. So let's get over that idea. We are all generally the same. All souls have the same essence because it's God, it's the source, and they have the same emotions. They have the same needs, they have the same rights, they have the same boundaries. Nothing changes. Okay, we'll get into that more as we go on. So, that's the truth of God and the origin of souls. Now, We're going to jump ahead to the Galactic Guardians discuss evolution. All right, so I'm jumping ahead because I don't know all the details of what happened, from the time of, emptiness until now. I don't know all that. I was brought back, had to do with my soul history, which I've talked about in other videos. I won't take the time to talk here. If you want to know about it, put the questions in the comments and I'll direct you to the videos, or maybe I'll repeat myself and make another one. So the Galactic Guardians. It sounds like something out of a movie. I know, the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's what it sounds like. It's what it sounded like to me. But what happened is beings were telling me they wanted to show me things about my history, and to do that they had to take me to this event having to do with the creation of Earth. So it starts with this council who call themselves the Galactic Guardians. I don't know what their real name is. That's the best that my human mind could do with, the telepathic information that was being given to me. And what I saw what looked like an ancient megalithic stone circle, beautifully carved, looked like, I don't remember the color, as I remember it now, is like obsidian or something like that, and beautiful, like rectangular pillars. It was awesome and amazing, and all that, and the sky was just this weird dark, with stars and galaxies, and this weird purple flame, and it was like something out of Star Trek or something. It was pretty amazing. So as I get there, I see that there are these shafts of light that go up into infinity, and they're all different colors, beautiful colors that I don't know that we even have in 3D. Some of them we do, maybe some of them we don't. I don't remember. It was fairly amazing. And so these guardians, I had a long talk with them. I won't get into that right now. Amazing personal stuff that blew my mind. But they got together and decided to start discussing creating a world where souls could go to learn the most powerful lessons about connection to one's own spiritual essence, connection to the soul. A place where the soul could really gain a lot of power. It would have to be a challenging school. And the reason is that we already had all of these planets. So the Arcturians, the Andromedans, the Lyrans, the Syrians, name it. There's an infinite number of galaxies and planets and civilizations. They already existed. They've been existing for perhaps billions, trillions of years. I don't know. They've been around a long time. They've evolved to very high states. In fact, they've gotten so evolved that it's like, what more is there to learn? What more is there to create? They're running out of things to do and create and learn. They're so highly advanced. So they see that as a limitation. So these lights, these guardians, galactic guardians, they start discussing how to create a very advanced school, a very advanced experiment. And this discussion went on for eons. And eventually they came to this realization that, okay, the problem is we already have all of these other civilizations. So souls incarnate. You're a starseed? You think that you're an Andromedan starseed? I am. I didn't know that. I found out that I am. I didn't believe in starseeds. It still sounds ridiculously stupid to me, but I'm more interested in knowing the truth than in feeling comfortable about what I know. I'm a starseed. You're a Lyran starseed. You're an Arcturian starseed. You're right. And you might be a starseed from some other planet that we don't know the name of. You might be a starseed of some dimension we can't even comprehend. And you might be a starseed from all the above, because you've been in all these, your soul is incarnated in so many different places. I mean, our human brain wouldn't be able to comprehend it. So that's what had been going on for the longest time. And so, all of these civilizations are kind of like, it's great, it's blissful, we love our reality, but we're kind of bored, and we need some excitement, and so we need to learn more. We want to become more powerful. So the Guardians got together and they came up with this idea, and what they really struggled with was how difficult should they make this? Because once they started really getting into this concept, they realized that, as long as souls remember who they are, they can only learn so much. Because if you remember that you're an infinite God, you're an infinite soul that is connected to everything, then, there's you can snap your fingers, and you want an ice cream cone, you snap your fingers, you got one. I mean, you don't have to work for anything. It's too easy. It's like a video game that you've mastered. I remember Punch Out. That's how old I am. I remember having Punch Out and mastering that video game, and then decades later I got it again, and within 5 minutes I was right back where I was, just winning. It was boring. So in order for the experiment, the game, to work, there came up this discussion about souls are going to have to forget who they are. And then everything hang on a second. That's a big issue. Souls, the last thing they want to do is forget who they are. And the problem with that is, if you go to a really dense school where you're in a really low toxic vibration, which Earth can be very toxic, as you know. Earth can be amazing and it can be toxic. It's like love relationships. They can be blissful and they can be the worst thing. And it all depends on how you interact with it. Now, if souls came here remembering who they were, the moment that they ran into those problems, they would tap into their soul essence, and then they would just rise above it, but they would never learn anything. They'd die, they'd come out and they go, that was fun, but I don't have any real power. So in order to gain power, you have to actually face what appears to be soul-threatening problems without the benefit of knowing that you're an infinite God. And then you have to dig deep into your soul. And this is what happens. Everybody, every single person, every single, exciting book and movie is about this. Somebody runs into a problem they can't overcome. And they have to dig deep into their own soul, and then they become their true selves. They fight against whatever it is that's trying to take them away from their true identity, and they say, no, I'm not going to give in to temptation or give in to the pressure. I don't care. Take my life. I am not giving up the authenticity of who I truly am. Boom. And then they win the day. Everything it's always about that. And all of your challenges are like that. You run into a problem and you keep doing the same thing over and over again, trying to fix it, and it only makes things worse. And you realize you're running away from yourself. You're not listening to your true heart and your true essence. And so as a result, you stop and you go, you know what? I'm going to do the difficult thing, and I'm going to dig into my true essence, and then life gets better. People heal themselves from illnesses. I'm trying to remember his name. Anyway, Dr. Joe Dispenza, healed himself of a broken back because in his hospital bed, he said, I'm going to heal myself. And he dug deep and he meditated deep and he started rebuilding his spine and healed himself. And now he goes around the world teaching, and he's one of the most amazing teachers around. He's one of my heroes. So that is the Earth experiment. Now, the downside is that if somebody can't remember who they are, then there's a real possibility that they will allow themselves to go so far down the frequency scale that they actually become evil and they become toxic. People call them NPCs. There are no such thing as NPCs. There are human beings who have forgotten who they are. And because of the trauma that they've experienced and because they now repeat that trauma to themselves and to others, they're completely disconnected from their soul. So you're right in terms of them. What you really mean is they're narcissists. And narcissists are humans who are disconnected from their soul, which means they don't have empathy, but they hate themselves and they live with this black hole inside of them where their connection to their soul should be. And so the Guardians really thought about this and said, this is a real problem. Are we willing? Are we willing to go through this? And they battled back and forth and they argued for millennia, for eons. And there was one particular guardian who was very adamant. And he said that it has to be as risky as we can make it. The risk has to be there that people could lose themselves, because if it's not real, then whatever awareness they have won't be truly authentic and it won't be powerful. And we are creating this so that souls can be more powerful than anything that's ever existed. And so he convinced the rest of the council that they were going to go ahead with the experiment, and they were going to put in it that it was so difficult that people might actually become narcissists, become NPCs. They might lose connection to their soul. Now, the good news is all those people will regain their connection. So no soul is ever lost. Nobody ever goes to hell. They might go to some place to reconstruct themselves. They might have to face some really nasty stuff to do that, but they'll all come back. Everybody will come back and be a perfect soul again. I know, I've seen it. You don't have to believe it. If you've been damaged, you might have a hard time. If you've been hurt, you might have a hard time understanding it. I've been hurt too, very deeply, but I've seen it and I know it to be true. There's no such thing as a lost soul. It doesn't exist. You might have a hard road back, but nobody's lost, ever. So the council agreed, and they said, okay. And then the Guardian, the Galactic Guardian, who was the proponent of the idea that it should be as difficult as possible, he said, I'm going to go. And they said, what are you doing? You can't. You have to stay here with us. You have to monitor the experiment. He says, no, it was my idea. How can I possibly create this incredibly difficult scenario and ask souls to go do that if I'm not willing to go do it myself? I have to know. Somebody has to be in there to know what's going on, to monitor it from the inside. So what if you forget who you are? I have to take the risk, he says. And what kind of a being am I if I'm not willing to do what I'm, suggesting other people do? I got to go. So they all realized that the wisdom of that, and they said, okay. And then they started thinking about, okay, so we need to have a being who's going to actually be the Earth. So all of the planets, in case you didn't know, all the planets, all of the stars, all of the galaxies even, all of the black holes, everything that we see in our third dimensional space is actually a being. It's a god, all of them. That's why our ancestors worshipped the stars and the moon and the sun and the planets and the mountains and the rivers. They knew, because they're right. Everything has consciousness and everything is a conscious being. So the Earth herself she had to be very special because, the other planets, Arcturus and, name the planet, those planets are beings as well. And so the mindset of that being has a huge impact on the souls that incarnate and walk around on that being, right? So same thing with this planet, Earth, the planet that we now call Earth in this language. There had to be a being that was willing to volunteer to do that, and so this makes me very emotional. It's a very emotional thing for me to talk about. The daughter of the guardian who came up with the idea for the difficult Earth, she volunteered. She was a goddess, a very beautiful goddess of creation. She had this ability to create, and she was so creative and so beautiful and so innocent and so wonderful and sweet, and I mean, just a unbelievably beautiful baby girl. It was his baby girl, and so she came and she said, "I want to be Earth," and her father said, "Absolutely not. No way. There's no way I'm going to put you through that. This is a very difficult challenge." And then as he's telling his daughter, goddess, infinite powerful goddess, that she can't go do this, the rest of the guardians, if a beam of light can tap you on the shoulder, they can tap him on the shoulder and say, "Hey, she's right. She's going to go, if you're going to go down, she's going to go with you. She's going to protect you. She knows you. And she'll make sure that you don't lose yourself." Because they said, "We know you. You're going to go so deep in that you'll lose yourself." Said, "She'll keep you from losing yourself." So they talked him into it, and he said, "Okay." So she volunteered, and she incarnated as the planet we know of as Earth. And she is an amazing, amazing, wonderful, most creative, most beautiful, most loving, most sweet, most dynamic goddess you've ever experienced. And she is our mother, Mother Earth. And so her father, he became a human being. And he went through, and he came from the very beginning. So there's a lot of people who rightly say, "I'm new to this planet. I haven't been here very long. I'm a starseed." That's true. Sometimes you might have been a soul on Arcturus or on the Andromedan galaxy or who knows what for eons, and you decided to come to Earth, and you hit, and you were, "Wow, this place is really tough, really hard. I'm not used to this." That's true. So this guy, he said, "I'm going to go from the very beginning." And from the beginning of incarnation, he incarnated as a Neanderthal and then a human being. From the very beginning, he incarnated. And he had this long string of incarnations. And I don't know what happened in between lives. I assume that in between lives, he'd go and report, and then he'd go back down and forget who he was. And he had life, and he said, "My lives have to be as difficult as everybody's. So I'm not going to give myself a break. I'm going to go and have as difficult a time as anybody else, and I'm going to have to find myself just like everybody else." And so all of the guardians and the other beings that, this powerful being worked with, they had to interact and do without him and watch. By the way, just to let you know, I found out that on these other planets, there are beings that get together and watch. I don't know if they watch TV or some hologram or I don't know what, but they watch human beings' lives, and it's amazing to them because they don't have to go through that. So they watch souls overcome, and they watch souls not overcome, and it's an amazing thing. And you'll find out when you start interacting with higher dimensions that you've got a whole fan club that's just watching your story. And they will come to you and they will say, I know, because they've done it to me and they've done it to others. Other people who do the meditations that I teach have said their fans have shown up. They said, I watch you from our planet, and oh my gosh, I'm such a big fan of you and what you've done. And then you're like, what? This is how crazy this is. This is what they've shown me. Maybe you think I'm nuts. I've thought that as well. I'm not making this up. I couldn't make this up. This is what I believe I've been shown by higher dimensional beings. All right, so those are the Galactic Guardians. They create Earth. All right, so all of that drama we just got through now, they know that this goddess of Earth is going to have to go and vibrate on a challenging level, and the beings on her are going to be crazy and destructive at times. And so she's going to need company. She's going to need beings that will be with her, and she'll be able to talk to them and communicate with them, have friends, and give her support, and also to protect her. Beings who have the power to protect her, so that, you know, human beings, if they get too far off the deep end, they won't be able to actually harm her. Those are the Lemurians. So here, the Lemurian Guardians of Earth incarnate. So I've just recently found out, I found out about the Lemurians a while ago, but I thought that they were human beings, like we've heard in our mythologies, that the Lemurians were human beings who achieved spiritual enlightenment and shifted up. That's what I thought. You'll find videos in the past where I say that, because that's what I thought. And that's only partially true. What I've come to find out very recently is that they're not human beings. They are these guardians who were, their souls like everybody else, but they incarnate in these ethereal, spiritual type of bodies that allow them to shapeshift. So they can shapeshift into humans. They can, you know, you'll be walking along, you'll see them, and the next thing you know, it's a tree, you know, or they can, mermaids, I think Sasquatch might be a Lemurian, mountains, rivers, forests, you know, these are actually beings that incarnate as parts of nature. And these are the friends and the children of Earth and the guardians of Earth. So, you know, there are some places you can't go. If you go and you try and do damage, some weird being will show up and scare you off. Sasquatch is one of them. That's a Lemurian who's saying, you know, you can't cause any damage here. Over there, maybe, but not here. So that's the Lemurian Guardians of Earth incarnate. And then each extraterrestrial race contributes to life forms on Earth. So this is a big question, because there's an untruth that has been circulated since the 1970s. Just to let you know, this was never ever taught on Earth until the 1970s. But it has now become, because it's part of the psychological operation lie, and it's been infused in UFO culture and New Age culture. You've been told that Anunnakis are space aliens who came to Earth. They needed to mine gold, which is ridiculous, and that they took, you know, proto-humans and spliced their DNA with them and turned them into modern humans and then enslaved them. By the way, if you believe that, you're screwed. If you believe that, there's no way out. If you believe that, it means that you think you're a worthless piece of garbage. I don't think you're a worthless piece of garbage. So if you believe that, you have to, if you believe in that you're something that was spliced together by some space alien who only wants to use you, it means you don't love yourself. And I get upset when I hear people talk about themselves that way. That's why I get so upset about these things. And it looks like I'm mad at you guys. I'm not mad. I get frustrated because my friends are talking smack about themselves and it hurts me. So I get upset. So please don't believe this garbage. How did I get onto that? It had to do with something we were talking about. It had to do with each ET race. All right, so you're partly right that we have been created by aliens, but only in the sense that each soul is the same regardless of what race. But all of the extraterrestrial races came together. And so when the Galactic Guardians had come up with the plan, the basic outline of it, and that the Earth had volunteered and one of the Guardians had volunteered to go down and be a part of it, then it was opened up to the rest of the councils and the rest of the extraterrestrials. Said, hey, you guys want to be a part of this Earth thing? And they said, are you kidding? They said, everybody bring bring your best ideas. So why do you think there are so many different animals on planet Earth? Why do you think there are so many different insects? Why do you think there are so many different ecosystems? Like if you've ever been to Australia, I lived there for a while, go to Australia and then go to Alaska. They're so different. The reason why it's all different is because all of these different beings are coming together and they're making this collage, this beautiful collage with all these different things. It's a free-for-all. So why are there extraterrestrials that look like mantis beings? And why are there so many different mantis being species on planet Earth? Because there's a bunch of different mantis beings out there. You've heard of the Nagas. The Nagas are the beings that in their realm, they look like giant cobras. Well, they're shapeshifters, but that's one of the ways they look. They said, oh, can we create snakes? Yeah, create whatever you want. Boom, snakes. Lyrans, as I understand it, are cats, are feline beings. I know somebody who has a connection with them and has interacted with them. I've interacted with them, I think, a few times as well. Cats. And cats and humans, look, there's no such thing as an evil ET race that's trying to do something and watching you from afar or any of that nonsense. It's nonsense. You understand that, right? That's all a bunch of nonsense designed to devalue you, or it's coming out of somebody's self-deprecative third-dimensional fantasies or fears about themselves. It's a projection. The truth is far more beautiful than that. So, each extraterrestrial race contributes to all the life forms on Earth. Now, the Andromedans design 3D Earth human beings, so that's their contribution. And so there are people here on this planet who are not Andromedans. They're Arcturians, they're Lyrans, they're Pleiadians, or whomever, and they incarnate as humans. And these are the people that don't quite fit in. They're the people that don't quite fit into society, and these are beings that aren't they're not Andromedans. So the humans that are really get into this thing, and they're Andromedans, and because Andromedans were the ones that designed the human body. They designed a lot of the things about human beings, the energy pathways, the nervous system, the brain. That's an Andromedan thing. So the Andromedans are they're very dramatic. So they're very creative and dramatic and expressive, and they're lustful and intense. And so they're the ones that, because I imagine all of the ET races got together and said, who should create the beings on there? And they're like, the Andromeda, you guys are such drama queens. you should create humans because you guys would probably like this stuff. So the Andromedans said, yeah. And so they created humans. Or they designed humans, I should say. They designed the human being form. The Pleiadians volunteered to be the advisors to humans. The Pleiadians, whoops, that's another one. I didn't mean to do that. Whoops, that's something else. All right, the Pleiadians volunteered to be advisors to humans. Pleiadians. Mysterious beings. Very wonderful people, though. So I've made videos about what the Pleiadians really are. I'm not going to take the time to do that. If you want to know, let me know, and I'll put a link in or talk about them. The Pleiadians, they volunteered to become the advisors to Earthlings. This will make a lot more sense later. So these beings, I can tell you, nothing bothers them. They have no judgment. That's why they're such good advisors. They'll let you do whatever. You want to blow your head off with a bazooka, they're like, if that's, we don't think that's a good idea, but if you want to do that, I'm not going to stop you. They'll let you do whatever. But if you listen to them, they have the best advice on how to get through this world. And they can tell you the truth about yourself, things that are very hard to hear. But because they don't have any attachment, they don't have any judgment, they can do it. And they can just look you straight in the face and tell you, here's where you're screwing up. And you did this. And here's what you need to do to get out of it. So again, we'll talk more about them later on in the history. The Lyrans, the Mantises, the Nagas, and other ETs design life. I already talked about that. How souls are chosen to be incarnated on Earth. So, I want to ask you a question. If you're listening to me and you've had a very, very difficult life, if you've been wounded, if you've been abused, if you've gone through trauma, and you don't want to be here, and you're one of these people that says, I'm never coming back here, I'm never doing this thing again, I want to ask you a question. First off, I understand. Believe me or not, but I do understand exactly what you're feeling. I haven't been through your life, but you also haven't been through mine. But I do know what you're feeling. So let me ask you this question. You feel like you are forced to be here against your will, and you feel, and rightly so, you feel victimized and imprisoned. You probably like religions like the Gnostic religion, which tell you that. Bear in mind, the Gnostic religion was created by humans who wrote that down. So you can choose to believe it, but the fact is a human being wrote it down. You can also just decide, I don't want to believe that. But if you feel that way, I want to ask you a question. Because people want to argue with me and they want to tell me, no, I'm a prisoner and I'm a victim and I'm forced to be here and false beings of light trapped me here and reptilians are feeding off of my soul and I believe that that's your experience. It might even be true. But I know at the very least that's how it feels to you. So my question to you is, if you were given the opportunity right now to snap your fingers and have the power to shift and become the creator of this world, would you take it? And you'll be surprised how many people won't take it. But the truth is, that's how you felt before you came here. You said, yeah, give me a tough one. Because you got the brochure. Oh, Earth. Oh, the guys that have really tough lives, they become super gods. I want to become a super god. Oh, I have to go through a tough life? I can do that. You volunteered for it. You got here. You forgot who you were. Maybe you bit off a little more than you could chew. But the truth is that you wouldn't have been allowed to come here if you didn't have the ability to survive the life you chose. It wasn't imposed upon you. You chose it. And sometimes people choose lives that are more challenging than they can handle. There's a lot of people who have had near-death experiences, and they remember when they came here, and their guides are like, "Are you sure you want to do that? Because we don't." And no, I know what I'm doing. And then when you got here, you went, "Okay, this was a little more than I could handle." So the good news is that you can get the support. You can get spiritual support, and you can become super yoked. But you have to be willing to take responsibility. So the first step to healing is you first must take responsibility and say, I don't know when, I don't know why, I don't know how, but I chose this. And what I have is either what I chose or it's based on some bad choices I've made, but I've created this. Now, people get so mad at me when I tell them this, and I understand because they feel trapped. But what they're not hearing is I say, if you created that life, you have the power to fix it. You have the power to create the life that you want. But the first step to be able to create everything you want is to admit responsibility and go, okay, I chose to come here. That's why I rail against like Gnostic religions, because Gnostic religions give you an excuse and tell you you're a pathetic victim and you can't change it. And so you're looking to escape the matrix rather than redesign it. Because you can. You can redesign the matrix right now. I've got, if you go to thunderwizard.com and become a member, you'll find a whole stack of videos how you can redesign the matrix. I know because I've done it. How did I get on that? So souls are chosen to be incarnated on Earth. What I'm not telling you is that only the most powerful souls in the multiverse get to come here. There are many, many souls that want to come to Earth, and the council said, no, you can't. It's too hard. You're not ready. No, I want to go. Trust me, I've been there. You're not ready. I know you. It's not time, not yet. So if you came and you signed up and you said, I want to go to Earth, I want to play the Earth experiment video game, and you went through the process, you went through a process, you went through this whole audition process, and people said, okay, I think this guy is strong enough. And that's the only requirement. Are you strong enough? Are you powerful enough? So only the most powerful of the gods get to come here. I can tell you that when I go out there, extraterrestrials, beings that incarnate in other worlds, a lot of them just go, oh, that's an Earth guy. They have such respect for any soul that comes here and has the power to stay here. This is what happens. This is why souls die, in utero, stillbirths, because the souls get in here and they go into the fetus and they start to acclimate and they go, I'm not doing this, and they leave. They die early deaths, infant deaths, child deaths, because they get here and they go, I'm not doing this. This is too much. I'm not doing it. I just wanted to look at it. I saw it. I'm out. I'm done. You've come back here numerous times. You survived into your adulthood. You are, by definition, an extremely powerful God. Extremely powerful. No two ways about it. How spiritual energies were designed into humans. This is a longer subject, but bottom line is, because it's number one, so harsh, and number two, souls came here to become super gods. So you've been given all of this tech, this super being technology, the chakras. Again, the psyop lie that chakras were implanted in you and you need to have your chakras removed. By the way, that's impossible. You can't do it. I don't care if you've meditated and you thought and you feel better. That's you lied to yourself and convinced yourself of something. Our minds are very powerful. You can't get rid of the chakras any more than you can, make your eyes disappear, or think your one of your lungs to pop out of your ear. I mean, you can't do it. But you need these things to become a super being. So that's why the yogis focus on the chakras. They're nagas. Those are the nagas that taught the yogis. The chakras are the nagas said, here's our contribution to the human spiritual, superhuman, super god technology. So there's the chakra system. There's the Dantian system, which is what the Chinese have come up with. Now the Chinese were taught by the mantis beings. That's why Kung Fu has a mantis. That's why they breed mantises and they're into mantises and the praying mantis. And it's because the mantis beings dealt with the Chinese and they taught the Chinese a lot of things. And so the Dantian system, the three Dantians, and the meridians comes from them. So that's their contribution. And then there's another system that has to do with the electromagnetic energy of the heart, which very few people know. And that also came from mantis beings. You can find out about that here at maoshan.thunderwizard.com. So you've been given all this technology, and that's why it's a really good idea to meditate, chant mantras, do qigong, do yoga, or do one or all of them. I created a fusion of all of them. That here at thunderwizard.com, if you go to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, I've fused Kundalini Yoga with Qigong and with mantra meditation and with the electromagnetic energy of the heart. I've fused all of these together. They were separate disciplines before. I fused them together. Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Go subscribe if you want to learn that. So you have all of these things that if you want to, you can use these to give yourself cheat codes in the game that will give you more and more power. And when you use all of that, you'll gain all kinds of power. And then when you leave this reality, you can take all that power with you. And trust me, when you do, and you come out, your soul comes out of earth and you've mastered yoga or kundalini or qigong or mantra or meditation or zen, I don't care which one it is. You've mastered one of these things and you've gained this huge amount of power, and your soul, you leave your body and you come out, the rest of the gods and the light beings are going to be like, oh, wow. Because you will be so powerful. You will have powers that they don't have. I'm telling you the truth. Doesn't this sound completely opposite to what religion taught you? It's because it is. You're a god. Yeah, in the third dimension, you have a bunch of limitations, and you got to blow your nose and wipe your butt, and, you have all this, but that's just inside the game. Once you're outside of this game, you have so much power, but you can't give up early. You'll lose points if you do that. Okay, so don't end early. Finish the game and win the game. How yugas were designed to evolve consciousness. I need to make a video just on that. But the bottom line is, I think here are the yugas. So the yugas, we're right now in Dwapara Yuga. We just came out of Kali Yuga about 300 years ago. And we are directly opposite the Atlantis sinking event. And so these are spiral shifts in time, eons, yugas, and they go with the 26,000 or the 24,000 cycle of the zodiac. And so every 24,000 years it's between 24 and 26,000 years, every 25,000 years or whatever it is, we start the cycle over. And each time we do it, we go up. So this was put into the earth creation for the idea of souls getting more and more power. That's why you reincarnate. Because if you reincarnated, during Kali Yuga, you got a certain amount of power because things were messed up. But then you want to come back and use those powers, so you reincarnate into one of the other yugas, you come back to Satya Yuga, where it's the golden age, the 5D, and now you have all these powers, you get to use them. So again, don't bag on reincarnation. It has nothing to do with being sinful and bad and you're thrown back in here. It has nothing to do with that. You reincarnate because you choose to. And if you don't want to, you don't have to come back. Okay? So stop complaining about it. All right. Where were we? A galactic guardian incarnates... how the yugas were designed to evolve consciousness. I just said that. The golden age of Satya Yuga, the city of Atlantis. So, again, if we look at the yugas here, so 13,000 years ago, before, we were in Satya Yuga, starting from 16,300 BC at the very least. We were in a golden age, and even before that, it was already moving into this golden age, 5D. And that was a different world. At that level, we had, and I'm not making this up, I saw this, but I didn't realize that Plato, the Greek philosopher, said this, that there were human beings in Atlantis who were demigods. They were the sons of Poseidon, and they lived for thousands of years, and they had superpowers. This was already something that people knew, and that's the truth. So there were all different kinds of people. There were these incredibly powerful demigods who were part human. This is where, again, the myth of the Anunnaki, the reason why we bought into it is because we remember. We have a really old remembering, those of us who've been around this long. We remember that there were these giants. And what happens with somebody when they're multidimensional is they look like they're 100 feet tall when they walk along. And then they can shift down and be your size. But then they can shift and be super big and walk around. Again, that's all perception. And at the same time, there were higher dimensional beings who were coming to Earth. There were extraterrestrials who were coming to Earth. There were the Lemurians who were already here. And so because we were in this higher frequency, you could see and interact with a lot more beings. And so this was a real thing. Now, during this Satya Yuga, the guardian, who was the one who came up with the idea for the harsh earth and said, I'm going to go down and become human, he got a chance to really be the guardian, one of the guys who came up with the idea for Earth, and he got to shift into a higher dimensional version of himself. And because it was his idea, Earth was, the really harsh part of Earth was basically his idea. They all decided, including him, that he should be the king. And so he was given an opportunity to shift into a multidimensional version of himself. And so he was technically the energy that surrounded the Earth. So his energy surrounded the Earth at this time, which is one of the reasons that it was able to be in this Satya Yuga, because he was one of the original shafts of light who decided to blah, blah. You remember all that, right? So he got a chance to sort of slip into that, and he used his energy. He tapped into his higher dimensional energy, which was really immense, and he used it to surround the world and create a safe energy so that people's consciousness could go higher and higher and higher. And he really, really got off on this. It made him really happy on multiple levels. But he was kind of loopy because he was human and he was, like 12th dimensional, super being all at the same time, and it made him loopy. Okay, so nobody had ever done this before. Again, this is an experiment. So the Atlantean experiment, King experiment, was part of the experiment. Now his friends were watching and everything, but he got a little loopy, as you can imagine. He took a little too much LSD, and things were very interesting. And he he made this really amazing, wonderful world for thousands of years. Okay, so that was the city of Atlantis, and the Galactic Guardian incarnates as the king of Atlantis, and how the king of Atlantis decides to build the pyramids. So I'll end part one here. So how did this now multidimensional human king, who was one of the Galactic Guardians who helped design the idea for Earth, how did he come up with the idea for the pyramids? All right, so I'm still learning about this, but here's the information that I have now, based on what I saw, based on what I was told, and based on existing records, which includes Plato and some others that talk about this. Oh, I wish I had it. I was going to get the picture, but if you go into, I'll put a link in. I did an interview of a guy who's digging things out of the ground in Mexico that, according to him, scientific tests say are 20,000 years old. And one of them is a plate that has the picture of the pyramids, and they're shooting energy beams up into the sky. And he says, yeah, this plate is 12,000 or 20,000 years old, and yeah, blah, blah. He didn't realize it, but he was showing me what I had already seen, that the ETs and light beings have shown me. So how did he come up with the pyramids? So here's what I understand now. Again, he got kind of loopy, as you can understand. He had pushed the boundaries. Nobody had ever done this on any of the other planets, especially on Earth, because Earth is one of the most powerful planets. It has to be in order to survive the intensity of this thing. So I'm not telling you what I see. He sits on this throne that has a direct connection to Earth, and Earth is shooting this energy up into his body, which goes out of the top of his head and goes up into higher dimensions. So when he sits on his throne, that would be one of the things that would freak people out. Is like, you'd see him walking around, and then he would go sit on his throne, and then and his head would disappear. He would just be this shaft of light. You'd see like an outline of his body and all this energy, and you'd see just his head would be gone, and all this energy would going up into. So the humans who saw that, it would just completely flip them out. And not only the humans, but other ETs and other light beings would get flipped out by seeing that. Because he was essentially one of the most powerful beings in existence, because he was on all these different levels at full, 100% capacity. So again, it was an experiment. And it went really great for a long time. All right, so the reason he came up with the pyramids was, remember, he's still human. So he's got a lot of the limitations and failings that humans have. And he didn't have all the time have complete access to his higher true dimensional self. And his higher dimensional self had kind of kept things secret because it was a secret plan. And if his human self knew, he'd, go, I'm not doing that. But in order to keep the experiment going, there were some things that were kept from him, and he had a role he had to play. So he's kind of loopy, and remember, the Earth is his daughter. Now, he doesn't completely remember this part. He knows that he's connected to her and that she's close to him and all of that, but he doesn't quite remember that this is his little baby girl that, is helping him. And he starts getting loopier and loopier. And so far, nothing bad has happened. He's really getting high off of all this energy, and he's kind of getting out of hand. And so I think, I'm ready to be wrong about this, and if I am wrong, I'll correct myself. But either because she knew what was supposed to happen or because she was worried about him, she jolted him. So he was on the throne and he was doing his thing, and she jolted him, trying to get his attention. And she was trying to get his attention so she could talk to him and help him come back. And the jolt actually, He didn't understand it, and it threw him off the deep end, and he started getting loopier and loopier. Nothing bad happened, he's just loopy. He's just a little bit too much. And so what ends up happening is that the reason why the Earth did it is because of these Yuga cycles. So when the middle of Satya Yuga there is when Earth is the closest to the galactic center. There's a black hole. There's a deity there. We've spoken with him. We used to do live guided meditations and go and connect with him. We've worked with him before. There's a very powerful entity that is there. And so when the Earth is the closest to that, that's when, you're at the highest level. Astrologically, it's also connected to the Sagittarius. From our perspective, the Sagittarius, which is the most spiritual. So the Earth had started moving away from that, as it does. It takes this circle around and the galactic, the galaxy rotates and it gets close and then far and then close and then far. So it was moving away. She knew this. He didn't. And so she needed to get his attention, because he was creating a lot of spiritual technology. And he was doing it with the advice of the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and all of the others. So the other thing was humans couldn't relate to this guy because he was constantly in higher dimensions interacting with higher dimensional ETs, and they were coming up with all of this spiritual technology, which was what all of the megalithic sites are. So those are only what's left, and those are the ones that they tried to recreate after the flood. But there was other ones, like the pyramids. The pyramids are the only ones that are really left standing. Because of how massive they were, they survived. But he created all these megalithic structures that went on intention and sound. So this is why if you chant certain sounds in the pyramid, strange things happen. This is why if you go to Stonehenge and you chant certain sounds, you can feel reverberations, even though the thing's fallen apart. This is what he created. He was creating this and a bunch of other things. But, the stuff we can't even imagine now. He was creating this with all of the other higher dimensional ETs. Remember, again, it was an experiment. So they're all in on it. But the Earth starts moving away, and she tries to get his attention. And that, of course, fails. He gets even loopier. Because they're moving away, he starts losing his connection starts getting, degraded. So he has all this power, but he's starting to get degraded in his connection. You can see that's a potential problem. And he should have had a spiritual breathalyzer or something. Anyway, so sorry, this is a lot of stuff. Each one of these things deserves its own video. So what starts to happen is the ETs start to see, okay, we now need to back off. We've had a lot of fun with this spiritual technology, because when you go in and imagine the world, this guy sits on his throne, his head disappears, all this energy comes out, goes into all over the world, all this energy, people get really high and spiritual as a result of it, and they're close to the galactic center, and then priests go into these megalithic temples and they start chanting and the whole thing vibrates, and you do it on certain days, and this planet here and the solstices and the energy was just really intense and amazing and beautiful. Being on Earth was just the greatest high you could imagine during this time. So this was going on. And so he didn't want to stop doing this. Humans didn't want to stop doing this. It was just too wonderful. But the ETs and the councils started seeing, okay, we got to start backing off now. We've had this experiment, we got to start backing off. And so they come to him. The Pleiadians especially came to him and sat him down and said, time to start shutting off We got to start dismantling the technology. We got to now start helping people to take this in. We got to teach them how to meditate, because we're going to start going down, a frequency path down. And this is about going inward and meditating. It's not about all of the external energy. And the king was loopy by this time. Maybe he was addicted to, again, this was an experiment. They didn't know what was going to happen to a human being who was also a god, and they didn't know. So he's addicted to all this stuff. And the Pleiadians say, we got to tone it down. And he says, no, we are not toning this down. And other beings and other ETs say, okay, we got to start dismantling the tech. And he's like, there's no way I'm going to dismantle this tech. We need this. Then he has a vision. He has a dream or a vision. I don't know which one. But he ends up seeing all of humanity getting lost in this avalanche and getting trapped underneath all of these rocks. And he wakes up from it, and it's totally destroyed him, because his entire existence in that life, which had lasted for thousands of years by that time, his entire existence was creating this aura around the world so that people could spiritually advance. That was his entire being. He couldn't be anything else. He didn't know how to stop being that. And then he has this vision where his entire reality, which was to help human beings shift up, the opposite happens. And it messes with him so badly, destroys him. And so he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't trust these ETs now who are telling him to do the opposite, turn it off. He's like, no, we got to do more now. We got to do more than we did. And he goes to his people, his priests, and he says, I want you to go look into the astrology. I want you to meditate. I want you to do readings. I want you to do rituals. I want you to figure out, this was my dream. Is this going to happen? And they come back to him and they say, yeah, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in 300 years. And this, for him, that's like day after tomorrow. And it destroys him, and he completely loses it. And all of the light beings come to him, and all of his advisors come to him, and they try and talk him back into sense, and he won't listen to them. In his mind, he thinks that they're telling him to abandon humanity, that humanity will be to let them die and suffocate. And he can't tolerate this. He just couldn't tolerate it. So one by one, he started telling the Pleiadians, get out of here. Get off my planet. Tells the Arcturians, get off my planet. Leave me alone. There are other ETs that work with him and help him. I think I could have this part wrong, but I'm pretty sure he had other ETs working with him, designing the pyramids, and a lot of humans. He got a lot of humans on his side, and they believed him. Instead of what he was supposed to do, which he was supposed to be an example for them, to be strong, to go, now we're going to go inward and meditate and teach them that. Instead, he frightened them. And he told them that if they didn't create this technology, it was going to destroy them. And so everybody started losing it, and everybody stopped trusting the light beings, stopped trusting the ETs. And then pretty soon, even the ETs that were helping him, that helped him build the pyramids, even the ones that helped him build the pyramids, even eventually he ostracized them. Until finally the Lemurians came to him, who again were not extraterrestrials, they were part of the earth. And they tried to help him, and he kicked them out of Atlantis. And he said, get the hell out of my city. I never want to see you again. And so they went back to their frequency. And so he ended up creating the very thing that he wanted to avoid. And that's what that vision was. That vision was the result of his mistakes, not what was going to happen to them. Maybe now you understand why I have such a hard time with people who have victim mentality, because you end up creating what you fantasize about. If you believe in a religion that says you're a victim, you're going to create that. It's one of the reasons. This is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate, because of what happened to that king. So, anyway, I think we talk more later. We'll leave it there for now, because then I think in the later ones we talk about the king of Atlantis So I already talked about a lot of that stuff. We'll go back and I'll go into some more detail, but we'll leave it there for now. So on that incredibly emotional note, at least it is for me. Again, if you want to support the channel, like, subscribe, hit the whatever that is, the hype button on your phone, and do go to the live section, do the live guided meditations. The best way to evolve is to work with me. So go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe as an apprentice. In the membership section, if you want to tap into the energy, do the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, which you'll find in the membership section of thunderwizard.com. Go to the shop at thunderwizard.com to get meditations and practices. There's tons of them. If you want to learn how to communicate and see the things that I've seen about your life, if you can handle it, go to contact.thunderwizard.com. I teach you all of my techniques. Maushan.thunderwizard.com is the most powerful energy practice, and this comes directly from the mantis beings, and so I teach that here as well. I love you all, my friends. Please be very good to yourselves. I will see you all very, very soon.